Maybe.
Here we go.
Welcome everybody to the May 7th, 2024 Tompkins County Legislature meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have the roll call of members?
Mike Lane.
Here.
Greg Mezzi.
Here.
Miller. Lee Shirtliff.
Here.
Mike Sigler.
Here.
Back. Here. Travis Brooks.
Here.
Randy Brown.
Here.
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Susan Curry.
Here.
Deborah Dawson.
Here.
Rich John.
Here.
Ann Corman's asked to be excused. Dan Klein.
Here.
12 members present.
Have quorum. We have two proclamations tonight. The first one is for Mental Health Month proclamation. Is there anyone here to receive that? Okay. I'll just read part of it then. Whereas mental health is a cornerstone to overall health and well-being, and whereas we call upon the citizens, government agencies, private institutions, businesses, and schools in Tompkins County to recommit ourselves to increasing awareness of the importance mental health plays in all of our lives, supporting those in need of treatment by offering appropriate and stigma-free services, while celebrating the contributions of those in the mental health workforce who make a difference in our lives. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tompkins County Legislature does hereby proclaim the month of May 2024 as Mental Health Awareness Month. Our next proclamation is for Community Action Month. Is there anyone here to accept that proclamation?
I guess, Dan, we didn't realize you had finished. Can we give an applause for that?
Certainly, if you'd like. Okay, I'll also read an abbreviated version of the next proclamation if there's no one here to receive it. Whereas Community Action has made essential contributions to individuals and families across this nation by creating economic opportunities and strengthening communities, and whereas Tompkins Community Action represents this national network in Tompkins County and has a 57-year history of collaborating with individuals and organizations to sustain and improve economic opportunity and social justice for families and individuals impacted directly or indirectly by poverty. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tompkins County Legislature does hereby proclaim the month of May 2024 as Community Action Month. We will have an executive session tonight, and I will announce the reasons for it later. And as far as reordering of business, if it's acceptable to the body, we are going to move up resolutions E and F, and they will come right after the special topical presentation. Is that acceptable to everybody? All right, then we are up to privilege of the floor for the public. If any members of the public are interested in speaking, please fill out one of these blue forms. You'll find it in the back of the room, and then bring it up and we'll get you on the list. So we have Zach Wynn.
Good evening, folks. My name is Zach Wynn. I live downtown. It is fitting that this is Mental Health Awareness Month, as I have forwarded you a story I wrote about last month's Public Safety Committee meeting. The story synopsizes a long discussion that was held regarding ongoing and routine violence occurring at St. John's Shelter, the Department of Social Services, and Cuga Medical Center. The meeting included discussion of the need for a mental health stabilization unit, a plan for which $1.5 million in ARPA funds have already been set aside. The meeting described how a relative handful of people in the crisis of drug addiction and mental illness are walking the streets in a revolving door between arrests, with bail reform a clear culprit in this dysfunction. One of these individuals, often referred to by Nate's Floral Estates residents as the machete man or the man with a chain, is back panhandling in front of the public library. This person is also a meth user, with methamphetamine's strong presence in the county remarked upon by Legislator John during the meeting. I imagine you all understand the corrosive effect meth has on an individual's psyche. There is no casual meth use, and no one avoids the consequences of its consumption. With the Alcohol and Drug Council gone and the drug detox gone along with it, the mental health stabilization unit would be an invaluable resource for stopping the cycle of violence that is currently playing out. I understand the effort is bogged down in an RFP. I request the legislature use what influence is at your disposal to make the stabilization unit a reality sooner rather than later. I have also emailed photos I have recently taken at the Art House building which show a broken external door I first documented in January of this year. It is still broken almost 4 months later, with the stairwell stinking of urine and used syringes littering the area. There's also a syringe in the children's playground. The developer and manager of the Art House, Vecino Group, is nearing completion of the Asteri building next door to City Hall. I know that the legislature recently elected to fund a move-in coordinator for the Vecino Group to help manage the populations of these buildings. I ask you, if Vecino is not able to manage simple issues like maintenance and cleaning of their property, how likely are they to be able to effectively manage the needs of 40 homeless individuals being moved into Asteri? The agenda for today's meeting includes an update on the Ithaca Downtown Conference Center, which will occupy the first 2 floors of the Asteri. The potential exists for the issues present at the Art House to play out in the Asteri building from the day its doors open, and further potential for those issues to impact the activities at the Conference Center. The Asteri is not hidden in the West End, but in the heart of downtown. I request the legislature do what is in your authority to ensure the issues at the Art House do not manifest in the Asteri building and rapidly respond to them if they do. I've also included police body cam video of the roadblock of Seneca Street that occurred on February 19th of this year. The faction of individuals who carried out this roadblock are currently preoccupied with the takeover of the Art Squad on Cornell campus. As the semester comes to a close, I anticipate future illegal shutdowns of traffic and takeovers of public spaces. Similar roadblocks of roads and bridges have played out coast to coast. They are pre-planned, coordinated criminal acts that amount to domestic terrorism. This type of behavior has no place in a civilized society. I request the legislature make it clear that unpermitted shutdowns of traffic are not an acceptable form of protest and condemn them when they do occur. I yield the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Next up is Anna Ortiz.
Dan, you didn't even give me the time for speech. You have to give me an extra point and minute in there. Okay, fine. Well, my name is Anna Ortiz. I'm from North Salagima. It's good to see Travis and everybody here. I wanted to say thank you to not give up on me with the portrait for the band. So it was struggle. It was a year and 2 months. I just want to clear it. It's recorded here, but we got it. We got a good vision of Veronica Pillar. I want to give a credit to Veronica and got a good eye. So I got the van. So we're gonna travel and we're gonna get out of here. We're gonna volunteer and my kids for the West Village, not just West Village kids for my program. Everybody that I can see in the street, I just gonna grab it and take it with me. And after that, we're gonna doing a meditation tree to just doing ourselves something out of here. So I'm planning to go to Puerto Rico, so anybody wanted to go with me, feel free. You pay your own ticket and we go out. Because this pandemic, this situation, so it's not easy. So I'm here because my concern is we have some situation. You guys are not blind. I'm not blind. Everybody's sitting up there. You know, these folks in here, like Ithaca Times, Ithaca Crimes, my good friend Matt right here. You guys see it every day, what's going on in Ithaca. I need your help. If you guys not even know what's going on in Ithaca, right with us. We'll feel free. We feed you, we give you something to drink. I want to see you what I see every day. The homeless thing, the cold blue, that is not even happen. Why the people had to leave from the shelter, the hotel, more than 60 people leaving the hotel. We have more capable, some resource in Ithaca than anybody else, because I went to Cola myself. I created the mutual aid in Cola. I get that credit in public and recorded. Because I went over there, they don't have the service that we have in here. But I don't know how they treat me, you know, with my color, but I was surprised. They treat me like I was the mayor in that town, well, in this town. But the thing is, we need help. We need your help. I need you to help my partners who are rich people. They are in the ground like me and everybody else. If you don't want to know, you want to know what's going on, right with us, right with me. Stop by at the Henry St. John. We'll be free to feed you. I'll go make sure you volunteer, because if I volunteer and I'm the boss, somebody's gonna sweating like me, because I'm not the only one that's gonna work up there. And please, I need you guys to, hang out and see what else. And thank you so much to give up. I'm gonna send some picture about the new van, and then if anybody wanted to hang out with me, when I get the van, feel free. Thank you, guys.
Okay, next up, Pete Angie.
Good evening. My name is Pete Angie, and I'm chairperson of the Town of Ulysses Planning Board, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Town of Ulysses Planning Board to speak about one of your agenda items tonight, which is Resolution F, which is addition of certain parcels to the Ag District 2. The parcel that I'm here to speak about is 618 Taganic Boulevard. It is proposed to be added to Ag District 2, along with 3 other parcels in the town of Ulysses. The other parcels are in the agricultural district in our zoning up in Ulysses. However, this parcel at 618 is located in the conservation zone, which is along the lakeshore. There are steep slopes there. There are vulnerable soils. There's a lot of creeks, and it's very close to the water. Because of its unique characteristics, zoning has been created for that zone to help conserve it. Agriculture is permitted in that zone. However, to be added to the Ag District means that that parcel in the conservation zone would lose the protections of the conservation zone. Ag District properties are typically exempt from seeker review. They are exempt from site plan review, and they can basically be exempt from most of the zoning in that district. Simply by seeking exemption through New York State Ag and Markets, the property owner can essentially eliminate buffers, setbacks, vastly increase the square footage of buildings on that property. Our opposition is not in opposition to that piece of land being farmed. It's not in opposition to agriculture in the town of Ulysses. It's really because we want to maintain the unique zoning that protects that area. I think it's the only conservation zone as such in Tompkins County. And so we really don't want to see it lose those protections. The property owner does have the economic benefit of being in the Ag District through getting something called Ag Assessment. It also has some other protections, and it has redress to sort of say, hey, I think this or that is too restrictive through our Board of Zoning Appeals. But to incorporate that parcel into the Ag District really eliminates the town's ability to regulate that property in the way that the zoning of the conservation district has been designed, which is to provide the best protection really for the lake, for the streams, and for the land in that particular area. That area, the conservation zone, is only about 15% of the surface area of the town of Ulysses. About 85% of the town of Ulysses is zoned agricultural. It's very appropriate for Ag District inclusion, and 3 other parcels are being included in this round. But this particular parcel at 618 Taganic Boulevard, we are opposed to. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have some materials as well, just to know. Can I distribute that?
Yes, please. Okay, next up, Anest Isuvaj. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it very well.
How's it going? So my name is Anesti Sufai. I do a lot of outreach amongst the homeless population, individuals suffering from mental health, substance abuse, and homelessness as well. I volunteer at the shelter for about 4 to 5 hours a day. And then I'm here to bring some of the to bring some awareness as far as the situation down on the ground goes. Since the end of Code Blue, there's about approximately 170 people that I know of personally that have nowhere to go. So they're sleeping on the streets, they're suffering with being ticketed by the police department, being kicked out by property owners, and so at the end of the day, they're left out with no shelter at all whatsoever. The second thing I want to touch really quick is the way the shelter is being run and the capabilities of the employees inside of the shelter. Most of the employees that I know there don't have the training needed necessary to deal with individuals with mental illness and substance abuses, and they usually result to banning these individuals for having a breakdown completely from the shelter and throwing them back out on the streets with any other plan B as far as what these individuals are going to do and where they're going to go afterwards. Another thing I want to touch is the expansion of the shelter. The shelter doesn't have the capabilities to withhold the amount of individuals that are right now facing homelessness. There is, and I know there is multiple places in Tompkins County where you guys could open up an extension to the shelter and have these folks be housed all year around, in my opinion, because once the end of the Code Blue happened, then everybody is just scattered around, trying to hold on to whatever they can. Their belongings were thrown out into the garbage without their knowledge, so they lost whatever belongings they had. These individuals are suffering from multiple directions, starting from mental health, substance abuse, homelessness, and amongst other emotional trauma that they're going through and have been going through. I would love to see a system where there's help for these individuals to be targeted in all directions, including, but most importantly, mental health and substance abuse. But so far, the employees at the shelter are trained for about 1 day for de-escalation tactics, and that is it. And I've witnessed myself numerous times the employees fire back at these individuals in a manner that is not de-escalating, helping, or in any way comforting at all, which adds on to the trauma for these folks. So, you know, it would be greatly appreciated if the legislature could come up with ways to expand the shelter and also more training for the employees. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak? We will move on then to municipal officials' privilege of the floor. We have Pierre St. Perez, City of Ithaca Common Council. Welcome.
As always, good to see you guys. And because of the quirks of how our calendars work for what? In ultimate unlikeliness, instead of me telling you what we're going to vote on tomorrow, I get to tell you what we voted on last week. So the City of Ithaca has passed, not implemented yet, but passed our Justice 50 plan, which is part of the Green New Deal plan. We are committing that we are going to be spending 50% of our capital projects budget going from here on climate justice communities and the needs therein. There's going to be a process for 10% of that to be through participatory budgeting that's going to be implemented in the 2025 to 2026 budget cycle. And this is a huge step in terms of climate justice in our community. It is very exciting. Additionally, we have passed a set of regulations on short-term rentals, which expand the capacity for short-term rentals on owner-occupied properties while restricting short-term rentals to owner-occupied properties. We're hopeful that this will open more properties up for long-term community residents and that it will be good for our communities. last of my just initial thing, but certainly not least, we are currently working on our downtown plan. If you or any of the people you represent use or rely on downtown Ithaca, there is a survey that you can fill out. And I encourage anyone who uses downtown or at any point to fill out that survey and provide input on how downtown can best serve the needs of our whole community. Yeah?
Not a question, but a comment. I think that survey closes tonight at midnight.
So please fill it out quickly.
Where can we find it?
tinyurl.com/IthacaDT-plan.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mike Lane.
Intrigued about the change in your capital program. By doing that, will it be shortchanging the capital program for your bridges and streets?
I don't think so. When we're talking about putting our capital money into communities that are at risk, climate justice communities, we're not saying that we are going to be taking it out of providing infrastructure. What we're saying is that we're going to make sure that that infrastructure is serving the needs of communities who are especially vulnerable to our changing climate. So I don't anticipate bridges and streets having issues.
Glad to hear that.
Greg.
Appreciate the update. As you can imagine, I'm probably going to ask about short-term rentals. Couple of questions. That goes into effect in
A year.
a year from?
From last week.
Okay. And then do you have any metric or tracking mechanism to understand the effectiveness or the intent and the outcome of the restrictions on the problem you're trying to solve for?
So this is an area where it's very difficult for us to get hard numbers. So our numbers are very soft, but we are talking about hundreds of units.
Yeah, there's probably upwards of 400 short-term rentals in the city.
Yeah.
But I guess how will you determine success of this regulation? Or is it just, we hope this does something? Because it will hurt the tourism economy, in my opinion. I'm just curious to know what metrics you'll use to define success.
I mean, at least for me personally, we all know our county is facing a housing crisis, right? And this isn't going to solve it, right? This policy is not going to solve that housing crisis. It takes many, many policies, and not just of the city, but of the whole county and all the towns. All of us need to work together to deal with that crisis. This is one step in that direction, and because of how interconnected our housing market is, it's going to be very difficult for us to determine what effects come from this versus what effects come from other building projects, other policies that various other members of our community are enacting. I want to be realistic about that. It's going to be hard for us to tell exactly what comes from this. That said, we are anticipating significantly more effective collection of the hotel tax within the city with the new policy, and that will be quantifiable. And it should go up significantly.
Got it. And then do you have plans for the use of that increase in funding?
I mean, that is all earmarked for the conference center.
Got it. Okay. And then I guess my last question, what's the next topic that the council will be taking up to address the housing issues?
We are already starting discussions on new zoning reform, and we're looking forward. I'm certainly looking forward. I know many of my colleagues are looking forward to working on ADU policy.
Great. And hopefully those will be less restrictive than more restrictive?
They will be targeted, and there's going to be discussions about how targeted, but we are talking about increasing density. This said, the city can't shoulder our housing crisis on its own, however much we try. We physically do not have the space. So we're doing our best, but we are relying on all of you out in the towns to help us out here.
This is my last point. I 100% agree with that sentiment. Are you also addressing infrastructure issues that relate to the challenges that are posed when density is created in an urban environment like you have in the city?
We are facing some of those kinds of infrastructure issues. As I understand it, Public Works thinks it's under control as of right now.
Okay.
I have a lot of faith in Department of Public Works.
Thank you.
Rich.
Yeah, just getting back to the capital program and this new initiative. I'm trying to get my head around what's defined in there. It seems like streets and bridges some of that money would be taken away from streets and bridges, but maybe not. But I understood there are some issues with stormwater inflows into the sanitary sewer system. Would that be something that would be covered by this? And doing the stormwater management that has been raised by the recent changes to the flood maps, is that in the capital program that you're talking about?
So how exactly different projects are going to be categorized as serving which climate justice communities is a process the city is still undergoing. I don't have those answers for you right now. I will let you know when I do. This said, I certainly think that direct climate adaptation stuff, such as adaptation to flood maps, would fall into this model, especially since those flood areas are climate justice communities, right? These are areas of people who are vulnerable to our changing climate, and I think the same would hold true of other climate-related water flows.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Pierre? Travis.
Pierre, I know the city was working on a grant to help solve some of the flood mitigation issues. Are we any closer to getting that money?
So we definitely voted to seek that. I do not have that information in my head right now.
Okay.
My understanding is we are on track for it, though.
Thank you.
To my memory. Again, not completely in my head right now.
Any other questions or comments for Pierre? Well, again, thank you for coming.
Anytime.
Very good. Are there any other municipal officials in the room? I don't think I see any. No. Okay, we're up to legislator privilege of the floor. Shauna?
Thank you. I just want to thank two of our departments. A few weeks ago, I had contacted Sheriff Derek Osborne and asked if I could do a ride along with our CARES team, and he very gracefully allowed me to do that. I rode along with Deputy Barber and our social worker, Rachel, and spent the day with them, and it was really good for a legislator to be able to see the work that they do day in and day out. And the program itself, there were a lot of things behind the scenes that both the deputy and the social worker were doing. They were making phone calls, they were coordinating services. We were driving all around Tompkins County, checking in on people. And it's a program that the way that the two individuals that are teamed together right now work together, it's just really amazing, and it seems like a really great program that's working really well. So I wanted to report that back to my colleagues, and also just thank Deputy Barber and Rachel for allowing me to do that ride along. I would encourage my colleagues, if you have time, to do the ride along. I'm sure you would get a lot out of it too. I would also like to thank Michael Steitley for the Department of Emergency Response. Reached out to him as well, and I was able to do a ride along with our new rapid response, and the person that I followed along was EMT Dan, and we spent the whole day in Lansing. We rode on every single outskirt of Lansing, roads I had never been on before, and we responded to 2 calls during our shift. One was right down the street from me, and then the other, we were headed down Trip Hammer, and we got a call right on Cherry. And so we were there probably within a minute and a half to respond to something that was very emergent, and time was definitely of the essence. So 2 great programs. I'm very glad that we're funding, and hopefully we'll continue to fund. And again, I encourage my colleagues, if you have the time, I think you'd enjoy, maybe doing a ride along and getting to know a little bit more about the programs. Thank you.
Other legislator privilege of the floor? Mike Lane.
I think something kind of amazing happened last week nationally, and I thought it's worth a comment. For well over 6 months, we've seen this heavy division among our congressional representatives over everything, gridlock. Our Congress has been one of the least productive ones, the current Congress, in history. But something happened, and we often hear that Congress doesn't act until it really has to, and I think it really had to. And that was the decision to fund the Ukrainian, Israeli, Taiwan, and other military needs out there that the whole world was looking to us to provide funding for. What was amazing about it was it wasn't promoted by the extreme left. It wasn't promoted by the extreme right, the radical right. In fact, what came together was the center of the Republicans and the center of the Democrats. And I think they spoke for a majority of this country in their desire to have something happen with respect to these issues. We know there's a big immigration issue out there still. I hope the center can come together again and find some compromise for that as well. But we may hear a lot about the left wing of the Democrats. We may hear a lot about the right wing of the Republicans. But when it comes down to it, it's the folks, the moderates, the folks in the center that have the strength to make things happen.
Randy.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I just wanted to mention that the Food Policy Council, there's a free movie event at Sinopolis tomorrow at 6:30. It's called The Common Ground. It's about the food system, and there'll be tabling afterwards and people asking questions and detailing programs for that. Also, I was at the Community Mental Health Services Board, and there was a discussion and presentation by Family and Children's Services on youth mental health and family mental health. One group called the Collaborative Solutions Network got a $10,000 grant to have to meet in the public with families and children and professionals who are working with youth and youth mental health. And that's going to be put together. I know they're going to be working with quite a few people. All the schools are involved. All 6 school districts are involved in this discussion, as well as many other entities, and I'll be following that. So, yep.
Thank you. Any other legislator privilege of the floor? Veronica.
Thank you. Randy somehow reminded me that this Saturday in Stewart Park, there's going to be a mental health focused event called Better Together from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's going to be about mental, emotional wellness, and that includes information and tabling, as well as activities and music and food and whatnot. So stop by if you can. It should be a good time.
Thank you. Greg.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I get my terminology right. Change of assessment notices, I believe, went out, and there's still an opportunity for those who disagree or wish to challenge their assessment to file and ask the Board of Assessment Review to review that on grievance day. which is on May the 28th, I believe. Yeah, grievance day will be May the 28th. So all grievance applications must be received by the Board of Assessment Review by 8 p.m. on May the 28th. All appointments will need to be scheduled by 1 p.m. on Friday, May 24th, if you wish to participate there. So more information, I'm sure, on the county's assessment department website, but just wanted to remind folks that there was still an opportunity should they wish to discuss their assessment with the Department of Assessment.
Thank you. Deborah.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank Simon Perez, for coming and raising the issue of our affordable housing problems in the county and asking for support from the surrounding villages and towns. I'm a little frustrated, and I guess I'm going to throw a bomb here. A while back, there was an event at the mall, and we talked about things that we could do with that mall that would serve the needs of the community. And on my little team, there were a number of older people, including myself, who urged the powers that be to consider taking advantage of that mall as a place to build intergenerational, broadly affordable housing, and perhaps to meet another need in the county for childcare. And unfortunately, our little team was steered by some academics who wanted to do something a lot similar, or simpler rather, sorry. And after that experience, I reached out to some of my county colleagues and I said, is there some way that the county can spearhead an exploration of options in the mall? Unfortunately, it appears that county staff doesn't have the time or the resources, and I understand that. But I think we as a legislature should prioritize that option. And, you know, I've reached out to my legislative colleagues about this, and I really haven't heard anything back. But we have got to get to the point where we put our money where our mouths are about this affordable housing issue. We have a couple of items on the IDA agenda tomorrow for affordable housing, but it's below the 80% of area median income. There seem to be a lot of resources that are starting to be dedicated to that segment of our population. What I'm concerned about is that there's nothing in the 80 to 120% of area median income for workforce housing. And that's simply not acceptable, because what we're creating is a situation where people who are well up the income scale can afford to live here, and people who are down at the bottom can avail themselves of, and I realize it's the resources are not sufficient to meet all of their needs, but they can avail themselves of affordable housing. There's nothing for people in the middle. And I think it's our obligation as legislators to try to explore our options to meet that need, because it's critical. So thanks for listening to my rant.
Rich.
Yeah, Deborah, I was waiting for the bomb to go off. I think that's entirely sensible. And certainly, having been in the mall recently, I had not been there in a bit. It's surprising its current state, and it's underutilized. And I think rethinking that area of our community makes great good sense. How we go about doing that planning effort, I'm not sure, but I agree with you entirely. That's something to look at. And I've recently had some discussions with other parties about this missing middle. The housing studies that the county has done have indicated we need housing across the whole spectrum. And frankly, I think we've done a pretty good job in introducing some new affordable housing. It's great. And the market has contributed a lot of new market rate, but it is the workforce housing, that segment that we really haven't done very well at all, because it's probably the hardest to build, in that you have to hit a very specific price point. And the federal financing assistance just isn't there. But repurposing the mall, you've got a lot of infrastructure already there. It might actually be possible to do it at some kind of affordable price. So, yeah, I think you weren't saying something too controversial. Thank you.
Any other legislators? I think we were joined by another municipal official. Patrick, is that you? Would you like to come up and say anything? Your colleague has already given the report from the city, but if okay, we look forward to you coming as often as you like. Thank you. Okay, moving on then to the chair's report. Let's see, we had the County Office for the Aging had their annual meeting and luncheon last week, and they honored two of their outstanding volunteers for 2024, and that's Bridget Huberman and Nancy Schaff. So it was really a pleasure to hear the amazing work that both of these people do for the community, and I'm glad they got recognized for it. Also, since our last legislature meeting, I think we all have heard about it, but it was since our last legislature meeting that New York State Senator Webb delivered $300,000 to Tompkins County for our rapid medical response program, and that's going to be applied to next year's program. So that's was really good news for that program, and will take a lot of the financial burden off of us. And then the last thing I wanted to say was, I've heard some reports about some ugliness happening on social media concerning our assessment department. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, and probably people that spend more time than me know what I'm about to say is very true, is that you don't necessarily get a lot of ground out of trying to answer every ugly comment that happens on social media. There's a lot of discussion in the community about assessment and about taxes and prices, and that's all good. Conversation is good, but I understand that some of these comments were targeting our assessment department staff, and I don't think that that is okay, and I wanted to say that publicly. A lot of people seem to be making a mistake and equating assessment with taxes, and they are not the same thing. The assessment on my house and land went up 20% this year, just like the county-wide average. But my taxes will not go up 20%. It is a misunderstanding if you think that these large assessments are going to automatically increase your taxes. What will increase your taxes is if the various government entities in this county increase their budgets, increase their tax levies. And that is something that you can talk to us about and you can talk to me about. It is not the assessment department that sets those tax levies. So if you're thinking that the assessment is wrong, unfair, it's going to increase your taxes, and that they should do something, that the assessment department should do something about your taxes, please do not address that to the assessment staff. That they cannot help you. You can address that to me. I'm Dan Klein. My home phone number is 607-272-7582. My email address is dklein@tompkins-co.org. And I would be the correct person to address those concerns to, not our assessment department. Thanks. Next up is a presentation about the Ithaca Downtown Conference Center from Suzanne Smith-Jablonski, Downtown Ithaca, LDC. Suzanne, you want to join us at the table here? You've got a PowerPoint, I believe. Great. Welcome.
everyone. Thank you for having me.
Excuse me, Suzanne, if you could swing that. Yeah.
There we go.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name's Suzanne Smith-Jablonski, and I serve as Executive Director for the Downtown Ithaca Local Development Corporation, which, to save us a mouthful, we just call the LDC. So, pardon me.
Don't worry about the sponge.
So I also want to introduce folks that have joined me this evening, for our presentation. And they are Jennifer Tavares, who's the president, serves as the president of the LDC Board of Directors. Is there, Jennifer? And also joining us from our ASM Global Conference Center team are Kathy Taylor. Kathy is our general manager here for Ithaca Downtown Conference Center. And Craig Liston from ASM Global is our regional vice president for convention centers. So they are joining me to answer any questions and provide any additional information that I don't get the chance to share with you as we give our presentation. And if you'll excuse me, I will reshare my screen. So I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the county legislature for your support of the conference center project. In refreshing my memory about the history of this, I was reminded not only of how far we've come in our progress toward this wonderful new community asset coming online, but also the times in which you were all operating when you were asked to consider this possibility. And we've all come a long way as a community, and congratulations to all of you for having led and made us through, helped our community through a very difficult time. So thank you for your support through the allocation of a portion of the room tax for the project, and also for having supported the demand studies that were conducted to understand the potential for a conference center in our community, that those funds were made possible through the county as well. So I wanted first to remind us all of why we, as a community, as a collective, wanted to embark upon having a conference center in our community. So the objective was to have a professionally operated, adaptable, state-of-the-art facility to provide the community a larger venue and additional meeting capacity to host a wide range of events. And this was part of the City of Ithaca's vision to redevelop an important section of Green Street with affordable housing, a conference center, an improved and expanded parking garage, and a retail shop within the conference center space for community use. And then, of course, the overarching rationale for our conference center is for it to serve as an engine of economic development designed to attract visitors who stay, shop, convene, dine, and spend in our community. The priority for our business attraction through the conference center is to bring midweek conferences that have hotels stays associated with them as a priority mechanism for bringing visitors who are going to come spend their dollars in our community. And we know from the demand studies that I shared earlier and from our industry partners locally that there's any amount of lost business that of folks that have expressed interest in holding meetings, events, and conferences in our community, but prior to this facility, we did not have the ability to host them here. So we've known that, and we are continuing to see that through our sales and marketing effort. And you'll see there on the slide just a reminder from the demand study of the economic impacts that we envision having through this project when we are fully operational, the annual visitation and spending, the room nights, local taxes, and new jobs, all stemming from this conference center project. So We're here, it's early May, and of course the question on everyone's mind is, when is the conference center going to be open? And I'm very excited to say that we're in the home stretch. So in terms of the progress on the construction in this month of May, the majority of the construction work on the conference center section has been completed. However, work continues on the residential portion of the tower. So in the month of May, the most pressing work that needs to be undertaken are the safety inspections for the life safety systems. There's one life safety system for the whole building, and so they need to be tested and fully operational. And then at that point, we anticipate receiving a TCO, or a temporary certificate of occupancy, which will allow us to start to load furniture into the building. It will allow us to start to begin to make some of those operational plans ahead of the full certificate of occupancy in June, where our team will be making their preparations, testing out how to use the kitchen, trying out menus, taking opportunities to test different setups for different events, and doing all that they need to do to get ready in advance of the conference center being open in July. And I'm excited to say we have events booked on the calendar for July, both some local events and some out-of-town conferences, and so we are working feverishly as all of our partners to get us toward that early July opening, when we'll be able to welcome events into the conference center. Our sales and marketing efforts have been going gangbusters. We have both our Visit Ithaca Convention and Visitors Bureau team, as well as our ASM Global team, both locally and at the corporate level, are out there promoting our conference center and our destination to meeting planners and to others who would be looking to host events here. We've been spending a good bit of time over the past year getting all of the sales tools in place. So what are the pieces that are required to make sure that we're telling the best story possible about our facility and why it's the place that planners and others want to bring their business. Those tools included things like our software, the new website for the conference center, all of the booking guidelines, and all of the back-end infrastructure that we needed to have in place to enable the sales and marketing effort. And we're seeing wonderful penetration by our folks who are out there selling the conference center in the New York City market and our upstate markets. For example, Lisa Connerton from our CVB team was in Saratoga Springs last week to celebrate with one of our groups that is coming to bring their 2025 conference here to Ithaca, to preview for them all of the things that they can look forward to next year at their conference. And so excitement is building. Meeting planners are really excited to hear about what our facility offers. Some of the things that we're hearing that are that make our conference center distinct and a very attractive location are the sustainability factor. Our facility features it's a first fully fossil fuel-free conference center in the U.S. Try saying that 5 times fast. There are many groups and planners that are really captivated by the idea of bringing their event to a facility that puts an emphasis on sustainability and is squarely within our city and county's objectives for our approach to responding to climate changes. We're hearing also from folks that oftentimes they have some familiarity with Ithaca and Tompkins County. They've passed through, or they have some family member, they've had some tangential relationship to our community, and now they're just thrilled to have a reason and an opportunity to come and explore it more deeply. And we hope that then proves the possibility that they will come for a conference or a meeting, and then they'll return again with their family or friends and continue to explore more of what our community has to offer. Something that we're also keeping in mind as part of our sales and marketing efforts are the fact that at Cornell, there are going to be a couple of changes in their events landscape in the next little while, and that includes the fact that the ILR school is no longer going to be hosting events, and there will be some renovations upcoming at the Statler Hotel. So that provides another opportunity for us to work with groups who might otherwise have been located on campus. So in addition to finishing our construction and undertaking our sales and marketing efforts, we have been working with all of the project partners to make preparations to welcome our guests. So what are we all doing in collaboration and in tandem with one another to make sure that when our conference attendees come to the Ithaca Downtown Conference Center, they're having the best possible experience? And that includes a whole range of activities and conversations. We're talking with the City of Ithaca and the Downtown Ithaca Alliance as they reconceive their plans for commons safety. And the DIA, for example, is reconceptualizing its Downtown Ambassador Program. How will those efforts enable us to welcome our guests and ensure that they're having a wonderful downtown experience while they're here with us as our guests? We're talking to our downtown merchants, our retail partners, and our restaurants to put into place the communications infrastructure so that when we bring a group to the community, they know who's coming, they know who to expect. They can offer promotions and opportunities that would be in keeping with that particular group's interests, for example. So we're putting those pieces into place so that everyone is aware and they can put signs in their windows and take other steps to make sure that, as I say, when our guests come, they know we're happy to have them here. We're working with our downtown hotel partners to make sure that when guests come and stay in their property, they know how to get from the hotel to the conference center. So we're looking at things big, small, and everywhere in between to make sure that we're, to use a phrase from my colleague Nan at the DIA, we're making our environment clean, green, and welcoming. We're working with our developer, Vicino, to make sure that all of our staff are introduced to one another. Everyone has the opportunity to build those relationships upon which a successful neighbor relationship will rest. And then, of course, our ASM team, we have our ASM Conference Center leadership team in place, and we are all having those conversations about what do we do inside the building, how are we working together on the exterior of the building, what are all of the pieces from start to finish, from your stay at the hotel, your parking at the garage, all of the pieces of your visitor experience are exactly what we want it to be and reflect the commitment that our community has made through this conference center. And then lastly, other pillar of our activity these past several months obviously has been working on our funding and related grants. So this project is funded through room tax, as you know, and the room tax collections that we have received to date have been used to capitalize our reserve funds and to pay for the pre-opening expenses and the LDC soft costs associated with our organizational work. There were two key grants which have been received for this project. One is from the Housing and Urban Development, which was particularly motivated by the move to have an all-electric kitchen to enable that possibility to take place. And the other is a New York State Economic, New York State Empire State Development Grant. And those are key pieces of the funding puzzle for the capital project. over the past year, we have implemented the calendar and responsibilities for our Fiscal Oversight Committee. This project is the product of many relationships with multiple funding partners and stakeholders, all of which are governed by a set of agreements, one of which is the multi-party agreement, which stipulates that we have a Fiscal Oversight Committee with membership from various partners that are doing, as the name suggests, providing that oversight to the funding and to the project to provide assurances that the tax dollars are being put to good use. We've also been focusing on preparations for our organizational structure within the building, which is a condominium structure. So all of the apartments as a whole, the residential portion is one condominium, and the conference center itself is another condominium. And that is the mechanism through which we manage the shared costs and the shared activities within the building. And so we've been putting together those preparations. And then finally, the LDC board has been doing its work in governance and board expansion. We added 2 at-large members to the LDC board this year, joining the 9 members who previously served on the board and were representing their organizations who have a role in the project. So as you can see, we've been plenty busy getting ready for this wonderful asset to come online. So I wanted to share some of the features in the way that we communicate them to to meeting planners and prospective guests. So some of the highlights of the facility are the 15,000 square feet of meeting space, 12 meeting rooms, fully electric, as I shared earlier. The parking garage is connected by a Four Seasons walkway. We have an on-site culinary team, only 6 miles from the airport, and hotels are within walking distance. So those are some of the ways in which we promote the center. And I will say that the timing is perfect because you should all anticipate that we will be sending an invitation to you to come in the month of May for a tour. So you can come see how the conference center is looking these days. So you should get that anytime now. So I'm hopeful that you'll get a chance to see in person what you're seeing here just being rendered, and you can actually see the real progress on our beautiful facility. And with that, I'm going to pause there because the folks who are most especially equipped to talk more about the features and wonderful selling points of our conference center include our conference center team. So I'm actually going to toss the baton, if I can, to you. Craig, would you like to come sit here? Wherever you like.
You can sit in the back if you'd like. You can stand at the microphone in the back, whatever you prefer.
Thank you, everyone. As Suzanne said, my name is Craig Liston. I'm the Regional Vice President for ASM Global. We're the management company that's been hired to operate the venue. I oversee the operation of about 11 of our markets, primarily in the eastern half of the U.S. But I've been spending a lot of time here in Ithaca. And Suzanne, I don't know, I may have missed the boat on hiring you because that was amazing, the sales job you just did on it, so I appreciate that. I do want to introduce Kathy Taylor. Kathy is our GM. She started with us last week, so if you count the weekend, because I know she worked the weekend, it's 9 days. So, 7 days. So I was happy to see her back in the office when I came in on Monday. So, you know, we're excited about getting this building going. A little bit about ASM first. We operate around 400 facilities around the world, everything from NFL stadiums to major convention centers to arenas to theaters and smaller buildings. You know, and probably the bulk of at least our convention center division is in the 100,000 square feet and less category. So, you know, this is really kind of a sweet spot for us. We've got most of our on-site management team has been hired, and they're kind of champing at the bit to get into the building. Now that we've got an occupancy date that's in the near future, we're looking forward to getting in there, getting the equipment unpacked, getting it set up, testing the kitchen, as Suzanne said, and really seeing everything that the building can do, and getting really going on the sales and everything else that we can really get it into high gear once we get access into the building, with having free access to it and everything else. You want to say anything about your background or anything?
Sure. Thank you very much for giving me this time. Again, my name's Kathy Taylor, and I'm the 7-day new GM of the Conference Center. And I'm not from Ithaca, but I am from Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I've been in hospitality for a very, very, very long time. And I had worked in Ithaca for a few years during COVID at Hotel Ithaca. And so it's wonderful to be back in the city of Ithaca, because I do really, really love it here, and I am moving here. So, but I'm very excited too. I was at the groundbreaking excuse me, I was at the groundbreaking for the Conference Center, so it's wonderful to be back in Ithaca and be the GM of the Conference Center and see it full circle. So I'm very, very excited, and Suzanne, kudos to you, because that was an amazing sales presentation. So, but yeah, that's me. So I'm really looking forward to the opening and seeing all your lovely faces come through and see the beautiful building. So. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're really kind of going full speed towards the July opening. One of the things that kind of is unique with our company is if you look in the area, we've got operations in Syracuse, so if we need to bring some folks down to support the opening from Syracuse, we can do that. We've got a team in Albany as well. My boss, who runs the Convention Center division, Dan Hoffand, actually lives in Lake Canandaigua. Craig Condra, who is our regional vice president for Savor, which is our in-house food and beverage division, lives in Saratoga. So we've got a lot of support in the area. So as soon as we can get our arms around the building, we'll bring the team in and we'll open it right and make you guys proud.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation and all the information. We are up for a few questions or comments. Any questions or comments from the legislators? Mike Sigler.
I was just wondering, I mean, the airport is clearly part of the pitch. Is there a dedicated shuttle that's going to be set up? Is TCAT, how are you going to get the people from the airport, I guess, or is that something you'll coordinate with the hotels? And
Might also have something to add here too. Everybody having both hats.
If you could come to a microphone somewhere, maybe over here. Thank you. That way people at home can hear us as well. Yeah, anywhere you'd like. Yep.
I'm standing by my friend's
lovely microphone.
So, I mean, I think we're subject to some of the same challenges related to airport transportation as the rest of the market, right? So our hotel partners do very reliably provide shuttle service and can be available. I think folks know a lot of people are using Uber and Lyft these days, but it is not always available at all hours, right? And then having the privilege of also being involved in the Air Service Board for a very long time now, I know there's constant conversations between the airport and other members of the community around, TCAT and other types of public transportation. I think by and large, most of the visitors to the conference center are probably not going to end up on a TCAT bus, but probably are going to avail themselves more of hotel shuttles and other types of, taxi and Uber and Lyft services. But it's a great question. And we certainly are, to the extent that we can at the CVB, as we market this and as we look at what markets and how we can expand our footprint to beyond that just 4 to 6 hour drive market. Of course, we have a lot of challenges around air service and a lot of people working on the air service issue as well. Making sure that we can both use this as an asset for the airport and also leverage the airport as an asset for the conference center. I think it's top of mind for everyone involved. Yeah.
Thank you. Rich.
Yeah, I was at the groundbreaking as well. I was privileged to be able to use one of the shovels for the groundbreaking. So I'm going to take credit for the construction. But I just want to say this is so exciting. This is a long, long time coming. This was an idea that kicked around in our community for decades, and it is such a key component of our downtown, District 4 of the county, I'd also say. But with the indulgence of my colleagues, can we give a round of applause for this? This is...
Greg.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I had a chance about a month or so ago to take a tour, and as a former hotel hospitality operator, I would have loved to have a ballroom and space like that. I think it's going to be an incredible asset to have the clear span and open floor plan, and just a color palette that's really bold and makes a statement. I think this is a great piece to our community. I appreciate, Suzanne, you taking the time and working with our schedules and getting here and bringing the rest of your group. So I'm excited to see as the sales pipeline grows and we continue to get updates through through Visit Ithaca and the folks there and through your team, just all the success that we have. And if there's anything that we need to do to help be more supportive of this success early on, please don't hesitate to ask, because this is exactly the type of tourism asset that we need in our community to grow the next phase of our tourism economy, attracting those regional and local groups to the conference center. Thank you.
Lee, did you have your hand up?
I did. A couple of questions. Hopefully they're softballs here for you. But remind us, and maybe for those that may be viewing, is there a range that you're looking at, conference size? How many people? What's your ideal and what's your maximum possibly for attendees?
We're buying 1,000 chairs, so that should give you an idea of our max that we think we can handle. But I would say, anything probably within the 200 to 1,000 person max is really what we're looking to accommodate. There'll be some events that'll be smaller than that, some smaller local events and things like that. But if we can fill that place with out-of-town visitors at those kind of numbers, I think we'll all be really happy with the performance.
How many hotel rooms have you got within walking distance now?
500.
500.
I'll defer to my general manager on that one.
Oh, great numbers to hear. That tells me what your business model is looking like.
And something to add too, another benefit that we offer is that there are additional assets within walking distance of the conference center, including Cultivare, the State Theater, Public Library, other places where groups, if they want to have breakout sessions, if they want to have another kind of event to complement the activities that are taking place in the conference center, we have really distinctive spaces that are a plus for meeting planners as well.
Veronica.
Thank you. I also got to tour the conference center, I don't know, months ago when it was a construction site, and so I'm very excited to see it again kind of filled in. One thing that I appreciated in that tour was learning that there was going to be a convenience store on the first floor. Is that still part of it?
Yes. Okay. Yep. The store is called Green on the Go, and it is intended to be a grab and go kind of a spot for folks who come to attend conferences, but more likely for our local downtown community of residents and workers and others who would like to grab a coffee or will have the opportunity to take some of the food from events that has been unused and repurpose it for soups and salads and sandwiches. And so we'll have, there'll be food options as well as some small sundries like you might see in a hotel type of shop. So we're really excited, and Kathy and her team and Craig are starting to think about what the hours are going to be, and we probably have to flex that a little bit to start with until we understand the ebb and flow of traffic. But that's very much something we're really happy to bring online, is that added convenience opportunity for downtown residents, and in particular our neighbors who live above us.
Yeah, thank you. I'd forgotten about the food waste reduction component, so that's exciting. And it's great that there will be something for the everyday passerby and residents, especially when there used to be a convenience store or a pharmacy in that area. And also I know if I'm at a conference and need a small thing and don't know where to get it, that's just completely distracting until I figure it out, which is...
Yes, plenty of batteries and chargers and all the things for the technology.
Susan.
Yes, I wanted to just offer congratulations to my friend and my former colleague, Suzanne. For those of you who may not know, she was the director of the Tompkins County Public Library Foundation, and we started a campaign together in 2015. Our original goal was to raise $1.5 million. We ended up raising $3 million, which enabled us to put in a makerspace, a teen center, reconfigure the entire collection, a digital lab, and relocate staff. It was wildly successful, and you did a fabulous job, and congratulations on this.
Thank you.
Not to mention a resident of District 7. Any other questions or comments about the conference center? Suzanne, everybody else, thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the tour, looking forward to the July opening.
Send us all of your leads, please.
Yes.
All your association leads. Thank you.
Okay, we had stated and agreed that we were going to move up resolution E and F at this point, so let us do that. Ann Corman is the chair of the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, is not here tonight. Veronica Pillar, vice chair. Do you want to go ahead and move E?
I would love to. I'd like to move resolution E, doc ID 12355, making a negative determination of environmental significance in relation to resolution number blank F of 2024. Action on the continuation of and modifications to agricultural district number 2, located on the west side of Cayuga Lake and encompassing the towns of Ulysses, Enfield, Newfield, Ithaca, and parts of Danby.
Is there a second? Randy seconds. Discussion.
If I can explain, this is just a negative declaration of environmental significance for the next resolution, and I know there may be debate on part of the next resolution, but that's not going to affect this as I read it, so that's all for now.
Discussion. Mike Sigler.
Mine is more of a question. I've asked this before about a negative declaration on something that we're literally doing the preservation on to protect it. And I never have understood that part of it.
Anybody want to tackle that question?
Nope.
I guess you're going to continue to wonder then. Veronica, you want to?
This is totally just a guess, but I've been allowed to talk.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's true. Thank you. I don't know if this doesn't fully explain it to me, but I think it's talking about the environmental significance of the change being made in the resolution, not like the area under consideration.
But clearly, this gentleman thinks that there is environmental impact, so that's why it's problematic.
Any other discussion on resolution E? Are we ready for, oh, sorry, Deborah.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Sigler, I agree that given the concerns expressed by the planning board and the concerns that I have, you could say that this has some environmental impact, and I don't generally like to second guess. We were the lead agency on this, right, Veronica? Tompkins County was the lead agency on the seeker?
Yes.
Okay.
Tompkins County Legislature.
So I don't generally like to second guess our Department of Planning and Sustainability, but I do have a question about this, so I'll probably vote against this one too. Thank you for bringing it to everyone's attention.
Just for the record, it's the Tompkins County Legislature who's the lead agency listed on the seeker, whatever that means.
Well, even more.
It's us.
There you go.
We're questioning ourselves. Greg?
Do we have an opportunity, does this one have to go before the other one?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So this has to pass for the other one to be able to pass? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Getting nods. Yeah.
I never understood that either.
And procedurally,
Please, go ahead, Lee.
procedurally, would this apply for the substituted amendment, potentially substituted amendment?
It wouldn't change the potentially substituted resolution.
In other words, we need to do this either way, is that accurate?
Either resolution that we pass, this needs to.
Okay.
And I think I don't know about the form, but the resolution as written is fine and still true because it doesn't name acres, and there are some other additions in the town of Ulysses, so it would still include that as well.
Yes.
Further discussion on Resolution E. We ready to vote on E then? Oh. We do not have to do roll call tonight unless someone requests it. So, all in favor of Resolution E, please raise your hand. Is what I got. Opposed? It's 3. Okay, the motion carries. So we are now on to Resolution F. Veronica?
I would like to move the one in the packet, Resolution F, Doc ID 12356, action on the continuation of and modifications to Agricultural District Number 2, located on the west side of Cayuga Lake and encompassing the towns of Ulysses, Enfield, Newfield, Ithaca, and parts of Danby.
Is there a second? Mike Lane seconds. Discussion. Deborah?
I would like to move the amendment that is in your red folder, and I guess I'll move that before I make my little speech.
Okay, we have an amendment moved by Deborah, seconded by Amanda. Very good. Go ahead, Deborah.
So I wanted to thank Pete Angie for coming and presenting the planning board's position, and I also wanted to share with the public and my colleagues some input that I received today from Rebecca Schneider, another planning board member who's unable to attend tonight. Her statement is that this parcel is located directly within our town's conservation zone, the CZ, which represents less than 15% of the total town's surface area, but is considered critical because it includes some of the most valuable natural resources in the town, including Taganic Falls State Park, many of the unique natural areas, lakeshore properties, and also the most vulnerable, including the steep slope areas. Considerable effort has been spent by the previous town boards to preserve these critical resources through development of the zone and its ordinances. Allowing this parcel to shift to become part of the Ag District would set aside many of those protections. Almost the entirety of the remaining 85% of the town is zoned agricultural and rural and is more appropriate to be included in the Ag District. So why am I making an issue out of this piece of land that's on the other side of the lake from my district? It's largely because I served on a planning board for 3 years. The county doesn't have land use regulatory authority, and there's a good reason for that. The local jurisdictions are best situated to understand what the local needs are in their communities, what the zoning should look like, what the local resources are. I understand that the Ag District structure allows the Ag and Farmland Protection Board to recommend what properties should be included in an agricultural district. But I think it's important that we understand that the AFPB makes those recommendations from a pretty narrow focus. The legislature then considers and determines whether to adopt those recommendations from a much broader perspective that should include some level of deference to the zoning structure that's created by local jurisdictions as they evaluate the local community's needs. And for the needs and the evaluation that the local jurisdiction has made, I refer you to Mr. Angie's remarks in public comment and Ms. Schneider's remarks, which I shared with you. So that's why I really urge my colleagues to honor the zoning structure that was put in place by the town of Ulysses and championed by its current planning board members. I think it's really important that we take into account their concerns and their analysis of what zoning should look like in the town of Ulysses. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion on the amendment. Randy.
Yes, I serve on the Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board, and I want to, in the county funds that actually, we provide funding for that part-time person to do this project, and it's every 8 years. There's 2 districts in the county. They had to be done, and I think it was done really well. I think there was good communication. I think even the Ulysses would say that they were communicated well, regardless of the decision that was made. When we looked at this, we looked carefully at the slopes. We spent a lot of time on this one parcel. I'd say probably an hour altogether just on this one parcel talking about it. One of the things that came down to was that the conservation easement was placed in the last dozen years, I believe. This person's owned this property for a long time. He pays the taxes on it, and he wants to continue to work the way it is. We were concerned it wasn't contiguous to other districts, to the district, because if it was an outlier someplace else, it wouldn't make sense at all to add it to the agricultural district, but it is contiguous to other ag things there. And so after a lot of debate, it was a unanimous decision by the Agricultural Farmland Protection Board to add this parcel to the district. And we felt that it was the right thing to do because the owner should have preference over zoning that came after the fact of what his current use was. So that was it.
Greg.
I have a question and a comment. What does the town board say about this?
The town board acquiesces, but I will tell you, as someone who sat on a planning board that disagreed at times with the board of, or the trustees of the village, that happens because the town boards, the boards of trustees do not laser focus on land use the way planning boards do.
Got it. So I just want to be clear, the elected officials in Ulysses support the addition of this, or let me say that differently.
They don't oppose it.
They don't oppose this being added to the, okay, but the appointed planning board opposes this?
Yes.
Okay. So
unanimously.
Sure. And so the elected level of government, which is the town board, does not oppose this being added. I just think it's really important that I don't think we're going over a local jurisdiction because the town board hears the advice of their advisory board, the planning board, takes that into consideration and decided not to act on that. And they are the elected official for that community. I think we've been given this authority in this process to make these determinations. I think farmland should be protected. We have an incredible and increasing food insecurity issue. And to overzone and overregulate farmland, I think is to the detriment of our community. I understand there are other things that we need to keep in mind. There are other environmental factors and considerations. But I don't think we should be as restrictive as we are on a potential farmland. And I think it's really important to know and just get out there very clearly that the local elected town board does not oppose this being added to the ag district.
Mike Lane.
Over the years, we've looked at ag districts. We've seen them add parcels. We've seen them have parcels that have come out of them. Generally, they've worked out pretty well. As Greg, as you just said, protecting agriculture in our county is very, very important. And you know, I don't know of any group that's more careful about protecting land than our farmers are. Yeah, there's problems sometimes, but they work with Soil and Water Conservation District. They work with people that fund them. They work with their neighbors. And on the whole, they provide the green space that we love about our county. And I don't think that we should restrict someone who wants to be in an ag district from being there. It doesn't mean they have to, that they're going to cause irreparable damage. It doesn't sound that way. That's what normally doesn't happen with farmers. Yes, there are issues, you know, and they work on the very large farms, particularly the CAFOs and other things, they have needs that have to be addressed to make sure they're not polluting, for example. But my experience over the years, interworking with the farm community, is that they care a lot about their business. They care a lot about their land and their families and their livestock. And I think that we should allow this to go into the district.
Mike Sigler.
I was just wondering, I mean, did the property owner bring this forward? I mean, how did it get to here?
Yes.
He asked to be included.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
That was it?
Veronica?
Well, that was one of my questions. And then the other one was, I'm hearing like a philosophical level discussion, which I think is important. But also for this particular parcel, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know this is a legislator discussion, but like I see other, Pete and Crystal are both still here in the audience. I lost my train of thought. The zoning variances and things, some of the difference of opinion seems to hinge on if in the future somebody wanted to construct some farming operation on that property that violated the zoning, the like conservation zone zoning, what would happen? And it sounds like whether it's in the ag district or not, there's going to be like an appeal to the zoning board for a variance and some potential discussion between the landowner and maybe the Ag and Farmland Protection Board and the town planning board. And the difference comes down to like, at the end of the day, who has the final say? Is it the state agricultural whatever, or the town? The town planning? Wait a minute.
Can I address this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess I'd want some clarity on like that in this instance.
So the way this would work, as Pete pointed out, if you're in the ag district, then you're exempt from zoning, seeker, site plan review, and local town of Ulysses regulatory protections. However, if the landowner wants to build something, say, that's bigger than what the conservation zone rules provide, he has recourse to ask the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance, which is contrary to what was represented in something that was in our packet. Not that expensive, takes a little time, but not that big a deal. And it's up to the Board of Zoning Appeals to determine whether they want to grant that exception, which leaves the decision in the hands of local government rather than just exempting the land from the entire zoning structure and the seeker and permit requirements and by fiat of the state.
So are you saying that if it's added to the ag district, then the landowner can just build regardless of the zoning?
Right.
Okay.
And
is that true? That's something in our email is contradicting that, so I'd love to hear like a second opinion if that's true.
There are some people with some expertise in the audience. Is the legislature good with calling some people up? Pete, did you want to come up? And I don't know if there's anybody else out there.
So this is it's a complicated law, and when a parcel is in the zoning district, who gets the ultimate say is New York State Ag and Markets. So we don't do site plan review or seeker with parcels that are in the zoning, that are in the ag district, because generally they are going to be exempted from that. And so if there is something that the landowner wants to build that is contrary to the existing zoning, they can appeal to Ag and Markets, and then Ag and Markets will make the decision and will override the local zoning. And they're very clear about this in their website. I put it in an email. If local government is unwilling to modify restrictive law, the department is authorized to take action to compel compliance with the Ag District law. New York State Court of Appeals has consistently ruled in their favor. That's in 305 of Ag and Markets law. So it gives up a lot of local control. It also gives up a lot of protections. The idea between what's unreasonably restrictive zoning is very different in the mind of Ag and Markets than it is in the town of Ulysses. So, for example, in the Conservation District, building square footage footprint, 3,500 square feet. You know, I've had some discussions with folks, and I know that Ag and Markets considers 20,000 square feet to be much more reasonable. Some of the things that we cover in site plan review, and it's not just because we're trying to restrict people's usage, it's because we're trying to help preserve the quality of the land and the water, is so conservation zoning covers, stormwater, soil conservation. And in site plan review, we require maps, we require wetland maps, and we require professionally surveyed, and professionally architecturally designed maps. That's not required in the Ag District. So, being able to ensure that something is as far away as it needs to be from a wetland. For example, in Conservation District, there's a 100-foot setback from a wetland. There's a 50-foot setback from a stream or an intermittent stream. So those are the kinds of protections that exist that we're potentially giving up.
Thank you. Veronica, the floor was yours. Are you done with your questions yet?
Sure.
Deborah, you had your hand up. I wasn't sure if you already said what you wanted to say.
Just that, my concerns are not whether this guy wants to build a barn that's bigger than 3,500 square feet. My guess is that within reason, the Board of Zoning Appeals would probably give him permission to do that. I think what we need to understand about adding this to the Ag District is that it's surrounded on three sides by Taganic Falls Park, by Lake Shore housing, by residential non-ag zoned areas. And once you put it in the Ag District, it stays there for at least 8 years. If somebody comes along in 2 years and wants to put 1,000 head of cattle or 1,000 pigs on that property, which is a whole different kettle of fish from what you've got now, they can do that. And that's what concerns me. And I suspect that's probably what concerns the planning board. And then the only other thing I'll say is that, Greg, I appreciate you trying to draw a distinction between elected officials and appointed planning board members, but I think we can also bear in mind the fact that a zoning structure is put in place by elected officials at some point in time. That's all I got.
Okay, so I've got Greg and Randy, both of whom have spoken already, but we can hear more. This is still in the amendment. Greg.
Yeah, I think the key word that was said was in terms of the planning and site review, the professionally designed, right? There's this theme that, it's not expensive to go to a planning board or ask for a zoning variance. It can be incredibly expensive. It can be incredibly time consuming. It can be incredibly litigious at certain points, but it can also be a breeze. And I think we're putting a lot of faith in zoning boards when the town board has already said they don't oppose this. I think, I'm just curious how many head of cattle we can put or how many pigs we can put in a 3,500 square foot barn. And I don't know, is the planning board equipped to answer that, right? Are they farm experts? No, Ag and Markets is. And they have to understand what the reasonable restrictions are. And there is a process in New York State to appeal that. And I think we're asking the farm experts to opine on farm issues as opposed to a board of volunteers that weigh in and interpret things that were put in place, zoning and other factors within a community. So again, I think there's a lot of stuff going back and forth, and again, I think if we had a food producer that wanted to come in and generate food and jobs and economic benefit to our community in a responsible way, we should allow that. And I don't think we should be restrictive on farming. I think we have a lot of right to farm communities within our county, and we should continue to support those.
Andy.
Yeah, thank you. I thought it was 3,000 square feet, but I could be wrong about that. And maybe Crystal, you can correct me on that. And I would like Crystal to, if she wouldn't mind, just kind of clarifying what Pete said, to make sure that I understood and you understood what he just said as far as the restrictions of the conservation easement and what the ag district benefits are.
Crystal, if you would come up to one of the microphones and please identify yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal Buck with Cooperative Extension. I'm the Farmland Protection Educator, and I serve as staff support for the Ag and Farmland Protection Board and the lead on the Ag District Review. So I wanted to first just point out that Ag and Markets, as Pete said, they do have the final word on determining whether a local municipality's regulations are unreasonably restrictive, but it is a collaborative conversation that they aim to have. So it's a process where they hear from the farmer that there's a regulation that the farmer perceives as being unreasonably restrictive. They connect with the municipality, they seek input from the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, and they have a conversation about what could be a compromise. That's their intended and written preference. And then ultimately, if they can't get a compromise, then they do have the final word. But it is a process that they go through. In answer to the question about barn size, I believe it is 3,000 square feet. Is that right? 3,500. Okay. Okay. Pete would, I think, be the final on that. And I think there was also a question about how this property got to be proposed for the Ag District. And it is true that the farmland owner has requested that they be added to the district, but the first step was that we actually identified them to be added to the district. It was reviewed as part of our overall review process, so we were looking for farms that receive ag assessment that are contiguous to existing ag district, and that this property meets that criteria. So we contacted the landowner. We discussed it with AFPB. We contacted the landowner. The landowner said, yes, they would like to be added to the district. And I think it's important to know that the property is currently in the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, which has, I think, 10 more years on that restriction. So it's the farmer hays the field, but follows the restrictions of that term easement and is interested in being in the district because he wants to protect the farmland. That's his goal. But of course, the land can change hands, and I think that's important to think about too.
Can I just ask, this collaborative process that you described applies to land that's in an ag district, not just land that's in another zoning area?
Right,
Yeah,
so the process would be that the farmer could appeal to Ag and Markets to indicate that they feel like they would like to do something that they can't do through zoning, or that there's an unreasonably restrictive site plan or something like that. The Ag and Markets then looks and determines that they're an active farm, a commercially active farm, that they're in the ag district, that they see that the regulations are unreasonably restrictive by Ag and Markets law. And the fourth one is that they are looking to see that there's no public health or safety issues associated with it. And once that's been determined, then there's a conversation that they have. They are seeking input from the AFPB, from the landowner, from the municipality, and seeking a compromise solution. That's kind of their step one goal if you look at their documentation on the process. And if they can't, then they are the final word, and they can require that the municipality follow that determination.
So if they're not in the ag district, then Ag and Markets won't work with them?
Right, that's what Ag District does, is it protects from the unreasonably restrictive local regulations. That's one of the
But my last question, it would still be in the conservation zone, right?
No.
Well, it is in the, so I think it's important to remember that the protection from unreasonably restrictive local regulations only applies for activities related to commercial agriculture. So all of the remaining types of uses on that property would still be under the regulations of seeker, of site plan review, of the zoning. It's just for commercial agriculture.
Deborah, I'm going to have to hold you off for a little while. I got Rich.
I had two questions. I think you just answered one. If it's a non-agricultural use, like say if the landowner decided they wanted to build a paper mill, that would not be protected by being in an ag district.
Correct.
And I apologize, it's been a long time since I worked with ag districts, but are there property tax consequences for the farmer of being in an ag district or not?
There are not. The ag assessment functions separately from the ag district. So this property currently receives ag assessment. You can receive ag assessment whether you're in the district or out.
Okay.
It does, however, affect like if there was a fee for the expansion of sewer or water, for example, that it changes the amount that is charged for that benefit assessment district if you are in an ag district.
Mike Sigler.
No, I just, I actually thought more about this than I thought I was going to. But, thank you, Pete, for coming in. And Deborah, because, it'd be one thing, I think, if we were going in and we were taking rights away from the farmer, but we're not doing that. This is, they're asking for this change, and I don't see much benefit from the change. I mean, basically, there's just more restrictions on it. It can still be farmed, is my understanding. There's still an ag assessment on it. And it's just the restrictions that Pete kind of laid out, they don't sound that restrictive to me. I mean, 100-foot setback from whatever the case may be. I mean, it sounds like this protects the farmland. The way it is now, sounds like it protects the land better and than it being put into the ag district is. And the reason I say this, listen, I think you all know I've been following the industrial scale solar that the state wants to build all over upstate New York pretty closely for the past 2 years because Lansing, is on the docket for that. And I don't want to see the state come in and kind of roll over local regulations. And I would think that this would kind of open a door for that. And that may not be true, but it just seems like it would be true. So, I think I would like to keep this one parcel. I think the amendment is pretty reasonable too. I think that's an accommodation. It's not like they're saying, no, we don't want any of it in. They're saying, no, this one little section. That seems like a pretty good compromise to me. So, thanks.
Deborah.
I think I'll let Mr. Sigler have the last word.
Veronica.
Sorry. I can always raise my hand again.
I know. You almost convinced me, but I think I had sort of forgotten about the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program part. I also appreciate, Crystal, you clarifying the process how this district got under discussion in the first place. Because saying just that the property owner asked to be added does seem a bit misleading based on what you said, that the AFPB contacted first. Even though I hear that he wants to be added. You mentioned the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. I just looked this up and I'm looking back at minutes from a committee meeting from January because it's taken me this long to understand this. That program pays a landowner that has agricultural land if they, what does it say, in exchange for removing environmentally sensitive land from production and establishing permanent resource conserving plant species, farmers and ranchers are paid an annual rental rate. Participation is voluntary, the contract period is 10 to 15 years. And so I'm seeing here that the current contract per somebody from a farmer service agency is due to expire September 30th, 2033. The landowner does have the option to withdraw from the contract prior to expiration, but would be required to repay all funds received plus interest and liquidated damages. So what I'm seeing is that this property is right now under a contract that's locking it into just having a cover crop, basically, for the purpose of water quality for the next 9+ years. And the ag districts are reviewed every 8 years. So that really makes me feel like it's not that risky to add this into the district, as was the concluded desire of all this discussion that, at least from the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, that Randy and others were describing.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, we'll have a vote. Does everyone know what we're voting on Deborah's amendment? All right. All in favor? Raise your hand.
Amendment.
To the amendment, yep. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. The amendment fails 5 to 8. We're back to the main motion. Discussion on the main motion. Okay, ready to vote on the main motion then. All in favor?
Nope.
Nine. All opposed? To 4. Okay, the main motion, resolution F, passes 9 to 4. All right. We're going back to the regular order of the agenda. We are up to report by County Administrator Lisa Holmes.
Thank you, Dan. I have just a few brief updates. Since we last met, you're aware, but I wanted to just state for the record that the sale of 408 North Tioga Street, the Red House, went through on May 1st, so we're all glad to see that happen. Yes.
We're not clapping at this. I thought we were going to clap.
Just to bring everyone's attention, facilities had the adjoining parking lot laid with millings and compacted and striped, and there's now a fence that's been installed between that lot and the neighbor to the north. So it looks great. I encourage you to take a look if you're driving by. I also wanted to acknowledge our budget retreat last week and the outcome of that budget retreat. And that we are looking for the 2025 budget process, a tax cap of 5.09% as calculated under the New York State calculations. And in order for us to have a budget which maintains our current levels of effort, it would take approximately 5.9% increase on the tax levy, or about $3.2 million increase. And the legislature has directed us to aim for a target 2% levy increase, which would be about $2 million of cuts to the levy. Or, sorry, $2 million of cuts from that maintenance of effort target. So tomorrow I'm going to be providing presentations to both the Human Services Coalition Forum and to department heads to make them aware of where things stand and get us prepared for 2025 budget preparations. And I will be enlisting their help to identify where to make these cuts for 2025. That's all I have.
Questions for Lisa or comments? Rich.
Lisa, I just wanted to acknowledge that you have a very difficult job ahead of you on this. And I think we on the legislature understand that, that this is going to be quite a process. From the legislature side, we have received very clear statements from many, many constituents about the tax burden and particularly the levy. And we are absolutely paying attention to that. I do note that in prior years, we've found ways as the year progressed to reach our goals with a reasonable levy increase. And I'm hopeful that we can do that this year. Randy, you have some optimistic ideas about what we may see in the coming months. I hope you're right. But I encourage an ongoing dialogue as we go along, Lisa.
We'll take you up on that. Thanks.
Yes.
Greg?
Yeah, just to clarify, the 2% levy increase was not a formal action by the legislature. It was more of a sense of members at that budget retreat to provide direction in preparation for the budget. So it could still be higher or hopefully lower than that once we go through the budget cycle.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's not a final formal action.
Mike Lane.
Been to a lot of these budget retreats, and what struck me about this one was the deep seriousness of all the legislators who were there, as well as you and your team. And I think Rich hit on it. We're hearing from our constituents. We know they have issues with inflation, rent increases, tax increases, everything else. And we have to reflect that. And I think that's sort of the ask of your department to be able to come up with something that helps us along that line.
Anything else for Lisa? Okay, well, thank you, Lisa. Next up is, sorry. County Attorney, okay, so Acting County Attorney Holly Mosier could not make it tonight, so she did send in a couple of sentences. I'll read. Since our last meeting, I have provided assistance to 14 different county departments, consulted with law enforcement agencies, the Ithaca Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and the New York State Police on juvenile investigations, and attended 9 court appearances. So that's Holly's report. Any comments or questions? She did say we could contact her in the meeting if we really needed anything. Okay. Then next up is Director of Finance, Lori Scarrett.
Thank you. I have several updates tonight. Since we last met, myself and some staff have attended 2 conferences. One was the New York GFOA conference in Albany, and we learned about bonding rules, particularly surrounding seekers, and updated bond rating presented by the 3 bond rating agencies. We learned about procurement policy rules and regulations, and we received some updates from Washington, D.C. and the New York State Comptroller's Office, among many other things. Then last week, Drew and I attended the NYSEC County Finance School, and that was held at Turning Stone. And that was a great conference as well. We learned about some rules and regulations regarding reserves. We learned about some AI and Copilot and taking meeting notes. We learned about some changes for certificate of residencies and IMREN foreclosure process changes that are happening now, as well as internal controls. So thank you for providing the funding for us to attend those. They were very beneficial and greatly appreciated. I would also like to congratulate one of our staff members, Gerald Tuttle. He attended the New York GFOA conference and was awarded with the GFI, which stands for Government Finance Institute Foundations Level in Accounting. In order to attain that, he had to take several classes in various fields of governmental accounting, and I'm very proud of him. There was a press release that went out on that. Thank you to Dominic and Rob for helping me get that out, but I'm very proud of him, so I wanted to make sure all of you were aware of that. The interim foreclosure process has kicked off. The property tour was today, and we currently have 25 properties in the property foreclosure process. I would like to thank the Sheriff's Office for assisting the staff today as they went out and did the tour of the properties and made sure everything happened in an efficient and orderly manner. On June 17th, there will be the informational meeting regarding the sale of the properties at the auction. June 21st is the last day to pay, and the auction will be held on June 24th at the Rice Conference Center. I also want to let you know that the auditors are now on site with us. They came starting yesterday, and they will be on site through the end of May. So far, yesterday and today, they've been focusing on looking at our debt and our bonding schedules and proper recording of debt, as well as our leases. And that's my updates.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Lori? Deborah?
Yeah, thank you, Lori. I'm curious, has the state actually come up with the new in-rent foreclosure rules that comply with the Supreme Court decision, and will we be learning about those sometime soon?
Sure. So they had the, I guess I would call it the interpretation of the guidelines that the state has issued as part of the budget process. So those are still under some clarification. And as soon as we get a little bit better information, I'd be happy to share with you what that is. But basically, it's notifications, more notifications to homeowners in several different languages, at several different parts in the process, and also how to calculate the surplus, what's included, what's not included. So things that need clarification are what determines a surplus? Are you looking at the assessment value of a property? Are you looking at the fair market value of a property? Some of those things are a little bit gray, and those are the things we need more clarification on. They've done a pretty good job telling us what kinds of things we can consider expenses, for example, mailings, the postage costs, those sorts of things. Staff time's a little more gray on what we can include and not include for our expenditures on those properties, deducting from the surplus. They did clarify that the surplus will be turned over to the courts to distribute, so that was a big relief to us to not have to track down all the lien holders.
So we don't have to do that piece?
No.
That's
yeah,
big.
That is
Thank
very
you.
big.
Other questions or comments for Lori? Mike Lane.
Thanks for mentioning about Daryl Tuttle. Actually, I saw that in the Cortland Standard on the 2nd, and I clipped it out and put it in my wallet because I wanted to make sure someone had brought that to the attention of the legislature, and I thank you for doing that. The other question I had was, you just mentioned from the conference that some of the things you learned about. I wondered, are there things happening with the certificates of residency for the college students that we ought to be aware of?
Yes, and I do need to brush up on that a little bit more.
Okay.
They're really encouraging, I guess, use of online certificate of residencies. There's some issue of what identifying number to use, student ID versus social security number. There's some changes regarding that. There's some changes regarding identifying students that may not be listed as a property owner, so to determine their true residence, I guess you would say.
Yep.
And a few other things, which I can certainly write up something and give you what those are.
Well, it would be nice. I know that that's a barrier for some students that are going to try to get these certificates of residency and have to appear personally at our offices in order to get that. So I'm glad to hear that there's discussion about that.
Anything else for Lori? Lori, thank you.
Do you want me to do the sales tax?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going.
All right, so I have also in your packet the March sales tax report. I'm going to just talk about the March numbers because I don't want to steal the thunder, but on Thursday I'll be doing all the quarterly reports for BCP. So the quarterly sales tax, among other ones, will be discussed then. But the monthly, for the month of March, for the county overall, all municipalities, we received just over $6.5 million. That's a 1.32% increase over March of 2023. The county share increased by 1.33% at $3.6 million. The municipalities had a decrease of 3.36% over last year, and the city of Ithaca increased 7.5%. Just to put that into perspective, for New York State overall, March's sales tax increased by 2.8%. The municipalities outside of New York City, it increased 1.8%. The Southern Tier area decreased 1.9%. Finger Lakes decreased 8.1%. Cayuga County increased 26%. Cortland increased 12%. Seneca County decreased almost 16%. And the reason I wanted to share so many of those with you is it's all over the board, as you can hear. And I just wanted to remind everybody that the January and February, the first 2 months of every quarter, is an estimate from New York State on what they think your sales tax is going to be. And in the third month of the quarter, they true it up to what it actually is. So I think they may have been off on their estimates quite a bit for several counties. So you'll see when I present the quarterly amounts for the at BCP, it's a much more steady number because you're not getting that influx. I can't say that, the fluctuations of the estimated amounts for the first two months of the quarter. So I just wanted to point that out. Any questions?
Questions, comments, sales tax? All right. Thank you for the mixed news. Okay, it is time to take a break. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we will resume the agenda. Okay, we are back in session. I believe we are up to the consent agenda. Oh, right. Sorry, we're on number 10. Resolutions added to or withdrawn from the agenda. I don't think any. Okay, thank you. Consent agenda. Resolutions and appointments to be voted on as a group. A member of the legislature requests that a resolution or appointment be instead included and individually as part of the business of standing or special committees. Board appointments. We've got just 2 today. From the Health and Human Services Committee to the Recreation Partnership Board, Randy Brown and Travis Brooks. Resolution A, budget adjustment, Department of Recycling and Materials Management, providing for the purchase of reusable bags, ID 12346. From the Public Safety Committee, Resolution B.
Can you remove that one, please?
Yes, pulled. Resolution C, authorization to accept 2023-2024 Local Government Efficiency Grant, Department of Emergency Response, ID 12374. And Resolution D, multi-year authorization to accept the Gun-Involved Violence Elimination GIVE 2023-2024 grant, Sheriff's Office, ID 12380. Somebody like to move the consent agenda, please? Travis moves. Is there a second? Susan seconds. Let's have a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? That is unanimous. The consent agenda carries. Thank you, everybody. We're up to standing and special committees. Government Operations Committee, Amanda Champion, Chair.
Great, thank you. Government Operations met last week, May 2nd, I think. We had a lot of resolutions. We went through a lot of policies, which I think you'll be seeing at our next meeting. Couple of, or at least one new one, and some kind of major overhaul. Yeah, so I won't go into them all, but we'll get to them all. We did have an assessment discussion with Jay Franklin, which is always exciting and enlightening these days. One thing that the committee did agree to take up and consider in the future, Greg brought up the idea about looking at the assessment letter, the one that is sent to folks when their assessment changes. And there are certain things that the department has to put on there based on state law, but we're gonna talk about that and just consider if there's any improvements, if there's any further, more clarifying information that would be helpful to residents. So that's one thing. Let's see. We also talked about our local law about holding virtual meetings that is about to expire. The governor extended that for 2 years, and we talked about that. We agreed that it is a positive thing in general. Most of us agreed on that, and that we would like to see that continue. So we passed a resolution to extend that, which again will be probably on our next agenda here. And last thing I would say, which was kind of interesting, I was contacted a month ago or so by a local comic, and he was asking about, you know, we have our poet laureate position. He was asking if we would consider having an artist laureate or a comedian laureate. And so I asked the committee if they would be interested in looking at this and finding out if other communities do this and what that would be like and if we would want to do that. So we are going to take that up at some point in the future. I believe that's all. It was a good meeting, so thanks.
Questions or comments for Amanda?
Like our version of America's Got Talent.
Oh.
Are we going to have like buzzers and stuff?
Could be.
Okay.
You'll definitely be on the panel. Okay, all right.
When I was on the TCAT board, I was thought about having a TCAT poet in residence that would ride the buses. Came along, so it kind of wasn't a great idea. Okay. But feel free to run with it.
You thought it was COVID that made it not a great idea?
Not be taking that bus.
Next up, Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee. Ann Corman is chair, who's absent today. Veronica Pillar, vice chair.
Thank you. We already did the resolutions. The Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee has not met since our last legislature meeting, but we are meeting again this coming Monday, May 13th at 10 a.m. We have a pretty comfortably dense, not too dense agenda. We're going to hear the annual report from the Environmental Management Council and the County Water Resources Council. We're going to get some updates from our Department of Planning and Sustainability, including about the Yellow Barn Solar Project and the Municipal Parks and Trails Grant Program. We're going to get some updates from our Department of Recycling and Materials Management, including an update about leachate from the Caswell landfill. And that's about it.
Questions for Veronica? Veronica. Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee. We are working on scheduling our next meeting. It's going to be in late June or early July, and I will report more next time. Deborah.
Yeah, I just wanted to express appreciation for Ms. Ortiz coming to say thank you. That's kind of refreshing. And to thank Veronica for helping her find her van.
It's a good van.
If you say so. Any van's a good van at this point with that grant. Thank you.
Anything else about the Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee? Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. Mike Lane, Chair.
Our committee will meet again this Thursday, May 9th at 9 o'clock a.m. And among other things, we've already been tipped off. Lori's going to give us several reports on, for some reason, this committee always talks about money, and that may be our job.
Questions for Mike? Excuse me. Okay, thank you, Mike. Workforce, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, Veronica Pillar, Chair.
Thank you. WDIC last met April 24th, and we had a pretty robust and wide-ranging discussion as opposed to concrete action items. A couple of things we talked about were we looked over the draft strategic plan and sort of we're thinking big about how to embed equity and diversity, like how that committee could support efforts ongoing to embed diversity and equity and inclusion in this organization's operations going forward. We heard from our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, Charlene Holmes, some work that's already in progress with that. We talked about and we brainstormed about how department heads could share out their yearly DEI goals with at least this committee or something. This is not, don't worry, no one's getting assigned a new task yet, but started to talk about like why that's important for the sharing and accountability and how like what could be an effective way to do that without like overburdening anyone, just doing communication that's going to be helpful. We also, Travis, our vice chair, brought up the current lack of any kind of policy about contracting with minority and women-owned businesses and enterprises. And Charlene told us that they're working on developing a policy for that. So we're excited for updates there. And I think that's it. Travis, anything to add?
Any questions for Veronica? Okay, thank you. Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. The Public Safety Committee met on April 23rd, and we had a first report on the Rapid Medical Response Program that has just started, and it does appear to be proceeding as we had hoped. We're at the very initial stages, so we'll see where all that goes. We also had a discussion, as somebody from Privilege of the Floor indicated, about incidents incidents at the DSS and the shelter and the hospital that we should be concerned about. And I think there's more discussion to happen there. I'd also mention our jail snapshot. Today we have 59 people in the jail and 1 board out. And then other than that, I have some resolutions, but if there are questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Questions for Rich? Mike Lane.
Rich, at the legislature, there's a number of initiatives to try to improve emergency response at the county level. One of those is to the possibility of having ambulance districts at the county level. And to me, that would be a wonderful alternate way to be able to, in the future, fund these things, these ambulance services that all counties need. And I just wondered if it would be time to begin taking a look at this and seeing what could be ready if this legislation passes, so that we can have boots on the ground as soon as we can begin to take this to our public.
Because you'd mentioned this, I took a look at the status in Albany of some of the bills, including the ambulance bill, and it does appear to be moving in the Senate, but it's not in the Assembly. So hard to say whether anything will happen this session, but I totally agree with you that as we're seeing counties move into the provision of ambulance service across upstate, and it's the evolution that's happening, and we're having to learn and to do this, and I hesitate to try to predict the future, but this is where we're going. Having ambulance districts as an option for a structure to run this type of operation makes great sense. And doing some, I would hope that New York State will do this. So yes, that's a long way around to say yes, I think that's a really good idea. We should think about how we could do some planning around this idea.
Shauna.
So I do have a little bit of information. It's called the Meyer EMS bill, and it was in the Senate's one House budget, but it did fall out in the final budget. I also have a link for it that I'm happy to send everyone. And it would make EMS an essential service. Sounds like it might have a way to go for the Assembly and the governor. So happy to send that to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Yeah, that's what I saw as well, that the Senate seemed somewhat interested, but you need both. So perhaps not this year. Maybe they'll get to it and surprise us before they all go home. But there we are. Anyway.
I'm going to take a turn. So I don't usually get really excited about these resolutions that say, hey, New York State, go ahead and do this thing. But I would be interested in seeing a resolution of support for this whole package of EMS bills that the New York State Legislature is considering, especially because NYSAC, New York State Association of Counties, is coordinating this effort, and we would be far from the only one doing this. So I just wanted to throw that plug in there.
I agree with you. We did pass a resolution at NYSAC. I say we because I'm on the Public Safety Committee there, in favor of the package. And it seemed to get a lot of attention, but no movement from our state legislators, which is unfortunate. But certainly I'd be willing to add that to our agenda for public safety this month, although the timing might be a little late in the game, but no harm in it.
Yeah, I'll leave it up to you. I just wanted to.
Well, I'm thinking maybe if the sense of the legislature, I could bring it as a member item to our next legislative meeting, and that would save a little bit of time. So,
I see a few nods. Lee.
This is my be careful what you ask for. And I think there's still some potential for major legislation from what I'm hearing from the fire service organizations before the end of the session. Essential services, as it has been proposed, would actually place an obligation on all levels of government, village, town, city, county, to guarantee a certain level of EMS response, not determine if that means from a transport standpoint or a first response standpoint. The county has never been under an obligation to do so. Where they've been involved has been voluntary. And this is again where I've put the caution out there with those that, other levels of government that are willing to step back. They may be obligated to provide some level of service or guarantee it, but the way it's been proposed and seems most viable, it would demand a county-wide or combination of municipalities' plans to provide free EMS. And to talk about an ambulance district, it all depends on what you're going to fund with it. And that may, the implication there is that you may have to be in a transport type business, and we're a long ways away from getting there. Our movement thus far has been to provide or to supplement first response. And you're talking quite an ambitious rethinking of how services are provided if you're talking about being in the ambulance business. That has different connotations and requirements to it. So I get a little nervous about this direction, but I certainly could see where the essential services may very well come to pass, and that would require us to work cooperatively with the municipalities to ensure a certain level of service, whatever that may be, moving forward.
Just to be clear for myself, there's this whole package of bills, and that was one of them, and I'm not sure, I agree, I'm not sure how I feel about that one, but there's other ones about insurance regulation, and there's ones about including in the tax cap or not, and there's ones about tax exemptions and more. So
alternate destinations, allowing something other than the emergency rooms to be the requirement of where a patient's transported to. There's also bills that would allow for treatment on scene rather than a transport to a higher level of care, and that's being opposed by the nurses' unions. So a lot in play there.
If I could respond, Lee, I share your trepidation. This is scary, but looking across upstate New York, this is what's happening, is that counties are stepping into the EMS and the ambulance role because it's failing otherwise, and we need it. It's expensive, it's complicated, it's highly regulated, but I don't see that we're going to be able to not get there. How soon we get there and how we do it, I think there's so much uncertainty, but we need to be thinking about it. And I think in terms of ambulance districts, it would give us some flexibility in funding mechanisms that would perhaps make sense. Anyway, a lot more to come, but I agree with you.
any other discussion before we hit the resolutions? Okay, Rich, I think you have 3 resolutions.
Yes, I think it was Resolution B was pulled.
Yes.
I would move Resolution B, acceptance of funding from Office of Indigent Legal Services for the second upstate expansion of Hurl Herring contract to support the provision of program services for assigned counsel panel attorneys and costs of program staff, Doc ID 12371.
Is there a second? Randy seconds. Discussion. Deborah.
I had a question. I know that we need to accept this money, but I'm curious what we're committing ourselves to spending locally in order to provide the services that this grant would apply to.
You know, when this got pulled from the consent agenda, I opened up the budget. It doesn't obligate us to spend more. It's assisting us. This is part of the state assistance that comes in, my understanding. Lisa? Yeah.
I think that's true. Yes, I agree.
So what do we spend now? Just, do you know?
I don't know. I can pull that up.
What is our current budget?
Yeah, for this program.
Well, the total, it's 2.439 million, so 2,439,474 is the net local share, so it would go towards helping with that.
Thank you. So that won't go up?
No.
All right.
And this commits New York State to providing that assistance over a 3-year term, so we have some stability, which is good.
Okay, thank you.
Randy.
Yeah, I asked you because I wanted to learn a little more about it. So this is basically funding assigned counsel, and the cost of assigned counsel has gone way up because of new rates? Is that what's this?
Correct. Correct.
So is this offsetting all that rate increase or just part of it?
I believe part of it.
It wasn't just the rates, though.
Lisa's looking, is this?
So the rate increase was separate from the Hurrell-Herring legislation. The Hurrell-Herring legislation, my understanding, was to help achieve closer parity with funding that gets put into defense and, DA's budgets. So this is to achieve that. So the mandate costs and the rate increases, the state last year put funding aside to cover 50% of those rate increases, and the counties were burdened with the other 50%, and the same is true for 2025.
Thank you.
Any other discussion about Resolution B? Ready to vote then? All in favor? Any opposed? That is unanimous. Rich?
And then I have Resolution G, budget adjustment appropriation from contingent fund, terminal pay, Department of Probation and Community Justice, doc ID 12271.
For second, Travis seconds. Discussion. Ready to have a vote then? All in favor? Opposed? That is unanimous.
I have Resolution H, appropriation from contingent fund, budget adjustment, county administration, hiring a consultant for reimagining public safety, doc ID 12306.
Is there a second? Deborah. Discussion.
I would just say this is part of our goals for the Public Safety Committee, and this will be of assistance in helping us figure out where we go with this. We're on year 3 of a 3-year pilot, so we have to figure out what comes next.
Any other discussion? Ready to vote then? All in favor? Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Rich, any last thoughts?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Any last questions or comments for Rich? Okay, thank you. We're up to the Downtown Facilities Special Committee. Randy Brown, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Our next meeting is May 14th. We're going to be joined by Susan Howell and Christine O'Malley from Historic Get Together to talk about the Historic District and their thoughts on whether these buildings are contributing to that or not. I'd like to get their opinion for that, and I assume it's going to be in our favor. SHPOs we're still waiting for them to respond to our planning department. We've completed all the documents they required and to wait and hear from them. We're also going to talk about department placements and any concerns anybody has about specific departments going into the Center of Government building. We'll keep it within the committee, and if we want to meet with specific departments at a later time, we can. But I just wanted to see what we agreed on and didn't agree on for that. And there'll be other updates, but that's about it.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Randy? Deborah.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Randy and Susan for doing a crackerjack job running this committee. We've had such a broad range of topics that we've explored and gone into depth on, and you guys have invited a lot of valuable input, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good team.
We have fun.
Anything else for downtown facilities? All right. Thank you. Next up, Health and Human Services Committee, Shauna Chair Black.
Thank
Shauna
you.
Black Chair.
Let's see here. We met April 17th at 1 p.m. and we were joined by the Food Bank of the Southern Tier. They did a nice presentation for us and talked about all of the different food banks around our county and how much food they get out the door on a very daily basis. Our next meeting is going to be May 15th at 1 p.m. and we're going to be joined by the Tompkins County Mental Health Association. And they're going to talk about some of the programs that we funded with our OTRs over the past year, the success of those programs.
Questions for Shauna? I have one. Last year when the food banks came and did a presentation, if I remember correctly, they talked about trying to hire someone or some entity to oversee it all. Do you know if that's happened?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I
Still a dream?
I haven't heard that either.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was not brought up.
Okay, thank you. Housing and Economic Development Committee, Greg Mezzi, Chair.
Thanks, Dan. We had our last meeting on Wednesday, May 1st at 3 p.m. We had a lot of updates. We had some interesting conversation with county administration, the DSS, Lydia Barger from the Continuum of Care. And Lisa, I might put you on the spot for a second. If you could highlight the working group charge that you outlined for us, and then I'll finish the rest of my update.
Sure. Off the top of my head, so we have a small working group of staff from the county, the Continuum of Care, Human Services Coalition, and the city who are looking into a very targeted effort to serve people who are living outside in the encampments with low barrier shelter, and in coordination with the city's efforts in the encampments, and what that would look like, how much it would cost potentially, how many people it would serve, and kind of a timeline that we're looking to prepare a proposal for the HED committee and ultimately the legislature's consideration would be by mid-July to consider along with the 2025 budget considerations.
Thank you. So hopefully by our July or August meeting, keep an eye out for those things. Appreciate Lisa and team pulling the right folks together to have that conversation. We had some interesting statistics from Kit at DSS. As of May 1st, there was 85 people under THA shelter, 79 adults and 6 kids. As of April 1st, April 15th, when Code Blue ended, there was 112 people with new THA eligibility, either previously in Code Blue or new applicants. Half of the eligibility assessments were approved, and about half of those were denied. There was about 30 gained to THA and about a loss of 122 people in that Code Blue process. So just to put some statistics behind the conversation. The Asteri surge, we got an update from Liddy. The housing surge, Asteri's affordable and supportive housing. There are 40 some units that they have. They currently have 33 people signed up, fully ready, 100% ready to move in, and 7 other people are currently in some stage of preparation to enter those housing. So that's where we get that number for 40, and this is a test model to work the kinks out of the surge so we can hopefully repeat this process as more opportunities become available. We also had a conversation with the Chamber of Commerce and got a little bit of an update on the wayfinding program and where they are in their process and discussions around that. We had the Ithaca Board of Realtors come and give a market recap. If you thought we didn't have a housing problem after their presentation, you surely would know that we do have one. And we also had a report and discussion around a Tompkins County living wage and what that might look like. There was some additional resources shared with all the members of the legislature that was put together by the Workers Center. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. It was a relatively full meeting with good discussion.
Shauna.
Yeah, I have a question, and there's something that I've seen like floating around the internet, and maybe it was in media, but is Tompkins County paying for a property manager at Asteria House?
Community Recovery Fund.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So what happened was, one of the grants that we awarded in the Community Recovery Fund was for the Human Services Coalition to hire a person that would assist with transitioning homeless people into apartments as they became available. And they were unable to find any body or any organization that was willing to do that. So they presented a plan B to us, which was Asteria themselves. We're funding an employee at Asteria who's helping people move into Asteria's 2 properties.
Okay. I was confused because I had not realized. I mean, I just assumed it would have been in our budget, and maybe I missed it. How long is that going to be funded for?
1 year, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To give you a little more info too, there was a second piece to it too, which was supposed to have been the same thing. It was supposed to go out to bid, but nobody bid on it. So accompanying the actual person that's helping people is, for everyone that's moving in, they'll call it pots and pans, physical things that they need to help be successful in housing.
Okay.
And that also went to Asteria because we couldn't find anybody else.
Okay.
Veronica.
I think Randy had his hand up first, actually.
Randy.
No problem. I want to appreciate Deb's discussion earlier about housing and how it's an issue. And when I look at what's going on, we keep building apartments. And I don't think that's really a great way for people to live long-term. People build equity by owning a home. And they can't buy a home here because it's so expensive. I mean, it's just, if you're making $60,000 a year, it's almost impossible to buy a house here. So I'm part of a working group, Greg, you're aware of the mobile home park, manufactured home stuff. And they're looking at models of manufactured homes to make it affordable. I mean, the issue is, where do you put them? Do you put them on land? Do you put them in parks or whatever? There's a big focus on cooperative housing, meaning basically the homeowners of the manufactured homes would own the park, for example. So they're looking at those models. But they're backing into the area to see what can you buy a manufactured home for, put it on 2 acres and with a well and septic, what's going to cost? And it's going to be someplace around $200,000. So it's filling a void, right? The issue is where you put them. And I think that to the point where the towns and municipalities need to step up, they really need to step up and think about, and it couldn't be just manufactured homes, it could be tiny homes built here. There's people doing it now, building 600 square foot homes, 800 square foot homes, trying to figure out this niche for people to buy. And one thing we've learned is that property values don't seem to be going down. And Jay Franklin had done a review of all the manufactured homes in Tompkins County. There's a couple thousand of them on private lots and whatnot. And their property values have not gone down. They've only gone up. They're not going up at the alarming rate of 20%, but they're going up 2%, 3%. And so it really helps people build equity in a home. So I think that I agree with what your comments were. So.
Veronica.
I have, I guess, 2 comments and a question. One to that, I love that brainstorming and planning is happening. I also want to say, if you own a home, but you don't own the land that it's on, you're still a renter. You're a homeowner and a renter, and you can use your housing just like any other renter. But about the austerity thing, I think someone said property manager, and my understanding is that's not quite what this position is. They're supposed to be there to support the tenants and like friends of the tenants, and specifically not the same as a property manager, because they're supposed to be seen as not like a representative of the landlord.
The 40 that are involved in the supportive housing.
Oh, yes, yeah. But they said that they would also be up for working with other people, like dealing with homelessness. I can't remember exactly. Like, it'd be those 40, but if like their friend comes by and doesn't have a stable house. My question, and I've been remiss in not asking this earlier because the city council asked me this, is since this position is going to be within a private company, what kind of accountability or oversight do either we or the Human Services Coalition or any other more public entity have over this person's work?
Well, won't MBR do that? I mean, this is like any other grant that we make out of ARPA funds. We have an obligation to monitor and be sure that it's used correctly.
That is correct. We've hired a consultant to do some monitoring. There may be monitoring beyond that. I don't know if anyone can speak to that, but I don't know if the departments are involved, but mostly that's right. We have a consultant to do that.
I know the Human Services Coalition is actively involved in that housing surge and paying critical attention to the most minute details of that process. So I would, again, I don't want to speak for Lydia and her team, but I would assume that there would be conversation if things were amiss or that was not working out. And it's something too that I'm more than happy to regularly ask Lydia as we go through that process through HED as a mechanism to check in on that. But I don't know if we have anything formal over that position as a grant recipient.
So the Human Services Coalition was the grant recipient, so that's our line. So we assume that they're doing their job, and we do monitor them in ways that I can't exactly, enumerate.
I have no additional items to report.
Okay. And Deborah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's an interesting initiative that Randy described. I seem to recall at some point in the past, back when Anna Callis was chairing HED, so it's a long time ago, and my memory is dim. But there's more than one problem with manufactured housing. Some of it is not considered real property, so you can't get mortgage financing on it. Has your group discussed that issue?
We have in currently manufactured homes are.
Oh, okay.
There is funding for those types of things, yep.
Because that used to be.
And it may be higher interest rates, those kinds of things sometimes happen. But no, there is. For the older homes is the difficulty.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Anything else for Greg in Housing and Economic Development? Okay, thank you. Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Lee Shurtleff, Chair.
Thank you. The Facilities and Infrastructure Committee met on April 18th, and a large portion of that was dedicated to a discussion of green facilities. And you'll remember last month, Lisa Holmes touched on challenges that we're facing with moving forward on green initiatives. And we asked Terry Carroll and Arel to address the committee, and they gave an update on that. And I won't give you the full program. Possibly we could send that out if it hasn't been sent out to the board, because there's a lot of good information in there. And if you want to go back and review the YouTube of the meeting, it was a very good presentation. And I'll ask Lisa to jump in if I mischaracterize or miss something important in here. But the short of it is, phase one of the green facilities development has been completed at a cost of about $14 million. And the short of it is, with those investments in facilities, public works, mental health, the library, weatherization and insulation, electric infrastructure upgrades, LED, and water conservation, all those things together have resulted in an anticipated savings of $100,000 a year in utility costs, as well as a reduction of 524.4 metric tons of CO2. So some success has been seen from that investment, but we all know that we were unable to move forward on future phases because of budgetary considerations last year. That poses some issues with facilities, and in particular, phase 2 would require investments at the Human Services Building, deferred maintenance at the public library for rooftop replacement and window replacements in mental health. And there's some initial conceptual designs, but to move forward on that would take a need to go for schematics and concrete costs, which would constitute phase 2. If Arel and Terry were looking for some signal from the committee as to whether to move forward with doing that, there are incentives out there, but if we went ahead with the construction design documents, it commits us to $318,000 roughly that the incentives would cover, but if it were not begun by 2025, we'd be on the hook for that, where the incentives, if we didn't move forward with those aspects. So I think we basically gave them the go-ahead. There's an urgency, especially at the Human Services Building with the boiler system and heating and ventilation, and they're doing the best they can, but it's something that could go on us at any point in time. We're still looking at deferring on the library and mental health, but again, those are the three primary areas. And we will be seeing that move forward through the PAR process in the development of the capital budget. And Lisa will be factoring that into her budget recommendations as we move forward. Did I miss anything?
I think you captured it. I think you captured everything. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. Other than that, public comment regarding concerns on East Hill traffic, and resolution before us tonight is for an amendment of the 2024 Tompkins County budget. This is for IC.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lee, hang on a sec. Before we get to your resolution, were there any questions or comments about the report? Okay, thank you. Go.
Thank you. So, resolution number I. These bifocals don't work well. Amendment of the 2024 Tompkins County budget to reflect appropriation of 2024-2025 budgets for the Ithaca-Tompkins County Transportation Council, and authorization to implement the amendment ID number 12321. And I will move that.
Second. Travis seconds. Discussion.
This amends the 2024 Tompkins County budget to reflect federal highway and federal transportation grant appropriations for the fiscal year for ITC-TC. And I believe that starts April 1st, and they were notified of new numbers and pro forma resolution to allow them to move forward with 24-25 appropriations.
Thank you. Discussion. I always think it's worth mentioning at this moment that this is pass-through money from the federal government. It's not costing any local money at all. Ready to vote? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
And we will meet on the 16th, a week from Thursday, 9 a.m.
Any last thoughts for Lee? All right. Thank you, Lee. I do not believe there are any individual member filed resolutions tonight. Can I have someone move the minutes of the previous meeting, April 16th, 2024? Deborah moves, Rich seconds. Any discussion? Okay, let's have a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, do we have any unfinished business? Randy.
I'd just like to, I heard an update on the notice of violation that was issued to the city on all the contaminated property. And Frank Krupa announced at our meeting on Monday that they have started to do, they submitted a plan already to clean up that one area, and they actually started to clean up the area. And just wanted to share that. Also, I'd like to share that I was visiting a friend who lives down by Myers Park, and he gave me a little glass container with 4 syringes in it that he pulled off on his beach of 65 feet. So it's making it all the way down there. That's like 7 miles. So, sure.
Thank you. All right. We have 2 items for executive session tonight. Collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. 2 items that fall under that category. Is there somebody that would move that we go into executive session? Travis moves, Greg seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. We're going to close down the cameras, take a few-minute break, and then we'll go into executive session.